Welcome to Research Method course offered by the University of Nairobi. My name is Professor Christopher Gaku from the Odell Campus, University of Nairobi. This course is among other courses that are in the program Masters in Project Planning and Management, and it's a course that is offered in the first semester of that program. And we have several objectives that we need to cover during this course. And the first one will be to describe the foundations on which research is based on. 2, to discuss how research is designed and is structured. 3, to examine how data collection methods in research are used. 4, to describe how data is processed and analyzed once it has been collected. And 5, discuss how to prepare a research proposal, and eventually you will be expected to discuss how we write a research report. But before we go into all this, we need to ask ourselves, what is research? And I would like to start with the word research. There's nothing new in the world. What we are doing has been there. And that's why with the word research has 2 words. Research. Re means looking back once again, and even more, and many other times, to look at what exists, re-examining it, and learning new lessons from what we already know. So basically that is the meaning of research. But in terms of what we mean in our course, the course of research itself is a process, and this process is a scientific process, and a scientific process that involves collecting and analyzing information to increase the understanding of the phenomena that we are going to study, or you are going to undertake. And it has several steps that we engage in. The first is when you have the idea. You must have an idea what you want to study. And this idea might be a problem you want to solve in the community or in any environment you find yourself. When you have divined your idea or the problem you want to study, then you must locate where that problem rests, in which scope, either geographical scope or in whichever environment that idea must be located. Then you must ask yourself, what kind of information do you require to get so that you can understand the nature of that problem? Then after you have designed and agreed on the information that you require, it is very important to organize that information in a systematic way that will enable you to study and to understand the whole problem, the idea you have. Then you need also to present your finding to other people or to the sponsor of that research. And eventually, obviously, you need to evaluate whether you achieved the objectives that you set at the very beginning. So if you look at it, the research itself is a process which is very systematic, step by step.
Hello, my name is Professor Harriet Kitombo. I teach LDP 601, Fundamentals of Management. This is one of the first semester courses in the Master of Arts in Project Planning and Management. Previously, we looked at the content theories of motivation, whose focus is on what motivates people. Now we will look at the process theories of motivation, whose focus is on why people get motivated. These theories were proposed as alternatives to fill the gaps that could not be explained by the content theories of motivation. They are concerned with the cognitive antecedents that go into the motivation process. There are several theories, and one that we look at today is the equity theory of motivation. Individuals generally compare their job inputs and outcomes with those of others and then respond to eliminate any inequities. So in the equity theory of motivation, it refers to the perception of fairness and justice in the treatment of people. So basically, people perceive that sometimes they are not treated fairly depending on the actions of their manager or whoever is in charge of them. So equity generally is on how do I compare in the way I'm treated with the other person. This theory was proposed by Stacey Adams in 1968. The theory can be explained by three types of justice activities. One is the distributive justice, where people perceive fairness in terms of the amount and allocation of rewards among individuals. Then there is what we call procedural justice, where the perceived fairness of the process to determine the distribution of rewards. So the issue here is there justice in the process that was used? In the idea of fairness in the processes that resolve disputes and allocate resources, one aspect of procedural justice is related to discussions of the administration of justice and legal proceedings. Distributive justice concerns the nature of a socially just allocation of goods in a society in which incidental inequalities in outcome do not arise would be considered a society guided by the principles of distributive justice. Then there is what we call retributive justice. Retributive justice refers to the fairness in the punishment of wrongs. So for instance, if two people commit an offense, say two employees come late, and then they are punished. Are they punished justly, both of them? Or one is forgiven and the other one reprimanded? So there would be retributive justice in that sense. Equity theory, as I've said earlier, is explained by the way people perceive their outcomes and their inputs. An outcome refers to what an employee receives as a reward from an organization. An input is what they give to the organization. So the comparison comes in the sense that the ratio of the outputs and the outcomes are compared to the ratio of the outcomes and inputs of a peer or a colleague in a workplace. Now, if this ratio of two peers in an organization is perceived to be equal, then there is satisfaction. If it is perceived, or if one employee perceives that their ratio is less than one of the other, then there is perceived iniquity, which could be perceived as underpayment. The reverse is also true, where one perceives that their ratio is higher than that of a colleague or a peer, and therefore the perception is of a payment, which again results in iniquity. So the best situation is that of equilibrium, or where there is perceived equity. Now, when people perceive that there is iniquity, they can do several things. One, they can change their inputs by inducing effort or reducing their effort. They can change their outcomes by increasing the output. They can distort or change the perception of self. They can also distort or change their perceptions of others. They can choose a different referent person, or they can leave the field by quitting the job. So equity is taken seriously by employees and management. Decisions and actions must be seen to be fair. The strive to restore the outcomes or input ratio to equity is used as the explanation of work motivation by managers. And finally, workers prefer equitable payment to overpayment. Thank you.